How does any of this make sense?
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. You don't know because you haven't put any thought into anything you've been doing tonight. You've been acting on impulse, on emotion, everything I taught you not to do.
What if 11 was never meant to be the hero of Stranger Things at all? We're all supposed to believe she's the party's wizard, the nuclear option, the girl who showed up, flipped a van, closed the gate, and saved Hawkins. End of story. But the more you look at where her power comes from, and the more you compare it to how Dungeons & Dragons actually treats Vecna, the more it feels like we've misunderstood her role completely. I'm convinced 11 isn't the party's mage. She's Vecna's Sword of Kas. In D&D lore, Vecna doesn't just have a right-hand man, he has a weapon, the Sword of Kas, a legendary blade he forges himself, pouring his own power into it. It's designed to be unstoppable, cursed, hungry, the ultimate tool to wipe out his enemies. And then the story does something insane. That sword turns on him. Kas, the wielder, uses the very weapon Vecna made, the very power Vecna gave him, and in a single moment of betrayal, he strikes Vecna down. The weapon meant to secure Vecna's rule becomes the thing that ends it. The fallout destroys them both. That is not just a cool twist. That is the blueprint for 11. Look at how she comes into the story. She doesn't grow up in Hawkins like the others. She doesn't discover powers naturally. She doesn't unlock anything by accident. She is built, crafted, shaped in a lab under fluorescent lights and cameras. She is literally an experiment. Brenner doesn't raise a daughter. He forges a weapon. He gives her a number, not a name.
Today, we make contact.
He breaks her down with sensory deprivation, trauma, and conditioning, all to sharpen one thing: her ability to reach into a dimension no human should touch and pull its power into our world. That is exactly what Vecna does with the Sword of Kas. Vecna takes his own magic, his own essence, and channels it into a blade that someone else can swing. Brenner, and whatever is behind Brenner, takes the power of the Upside Down, of the Mind Flayer, and channels it into a child that someone else can point. Everyone tells 11 she's special, but the show keeps quietly asking a different question. Special to who? Think about when her powers show up and vanish. They don't work like a normal power curve. She doesn't just get stronger. She spikes when the emotional stakes are highest, when she's terrified of losing Mike, when she's furious, when she's replaying trauma. Those moments aren't calm mastery. They're surges, overloads. That's not a girl lifting weights. That's a cursed weapon being overclocked. And here's the part we almost never talk about. The first time 11 really uses her power, she doesn't close anything. She opens it. She's the reason the original gate to the Upside Down exists. Her mind reaches across, touches something in the dark, and reality tears open. If you're Vecna, or whatever intelligence is inside the Mind Flayer, that is ideal. You now have a perfect conduit in the human world, a girl who thinks she is fighting you, while every use of her power deepens the connection to your realm. Every time she strains, screams, and bleeds to save the people she loves, she's also pouring energy into the very network you control. That's what the Sword of Kas is, a weapon designed for one purpose, built by the villain, that doesn't realize who it truly serves until the very end. So here's the theory. 11's powers are not pure. They are not clean. They are not just hers. They're upside-down power routed through a human soul. She is a living artifact, the Sword of Kas in human form. And in Stranger Things 5, Vecna is going to try to use the weapon he made exactly the way D&D Vecna does. Not just as a threat, as a final guarantee. Picture the final battle. The Upside Down is spilling into Hawkins. Gates are open everywhere. Vines, spores, storms. Vecna thinks he has every angle covered. The party throws everything they have at him. Fire, bullets, Molotovs, axes, music, memories. It all slows him down, but it doesn't finish him. Because you don't kill a level 20 lich with party tricks. You need something built on his level. You need the sword he made. That's when Vecna stops trying to crush 11 and starts trying to control her. He leans into the connection that's always been there. He taunts her with her past, with Brenner, with her mother, with every person she failed to save. He doesn't want to break her body. He wants to break her mind. If he can push her far enough, she'll pour everything she has into the fight. She'll rip open whatever barrier is left between worlds and unleash enough power to reshape reality. And he is absolutely certain that whatever she does in that state will ultimately benefit him. Because she is built on his power source. It's the same arrogance Vecna shows in D&D. He believes that because he forged the Sword of Kas, he owns it. He believes that because he poured his magic into it, no blow it strikes can truly hurt him. And just like in D&D, that's the miscalculation that destroys him, because eventually the weapon realizes what it is. At some point in that final fight, 11 is going to understand that she's not just their champion. She's the bridge. She's the channel. She's the reason Vecna can reach this far at all. The person Brenner turned into a gun is also the safety lock keeping Vecna from fully manifesting. She's not just the only person who can reach him. She's the only person who can reach the power behind him and decide where it goes. So the real Kaz moment is not 11 pushing harder. It's 11 turning the blade around. Instead of dumping all that power into punches and force fields and giant psychic beams, she aims it at the source behind Vecna, at the network of particles, at the mind flayer storm, at the thing in the dark that's been feeding on her whole life. She takes the connection that's been used to manipulate her since birth and burns it out from the inside. That kills Vecna. That severs the Upside Down's grip on Hawkins. But just like the Sword of Kas, there's a cost. You don't get to destroy the weapon and keep using it. If 11 really is Vecna's sword, then the only way to win is for that sword to break. She doesn't just beat him and go home with her powers. She wins by choosing to let the thing that makes her special die with him. She walks away as a normal girl, or she doesn't walk away at all. Either way, the story suddenly clicks into place. Brenner didn't accidentally create humanity's savior. He accidentally gave Vecna the one weapon that could kill him. A weapon that learned how to choose. So I don't think Stranger Things ends with 11 simply overpowering Vecna in a flashy boss fight. I think it ends with her realizing what she really is, turning that power against the thing that forged it, and breaking the entire system, even if it means breaking herself. Whether you think 11 survives that or not, tell me in the comments how you see her ending. And if you're still watching, drop Sword of L down below so I know you're part of the party.
Found a nest of black widows living inside of that. Most people fear spiders. They detest them. And yet, I found them endlessly fascinating. Found a great comfort in them. The kinship. Like me, they are solitary creatures and deeply misunderstood.
What if Stranger Things has been lying to us about Vecna from the start? We're all supposed to believe the mystery is solved. Henry Creel is 001. 001 is Vecna. Vecna is the Mind Flayer's general. Roll credits, theory over. But the more you look at how Dungeons & Dragons actually treats Vecna, and the more you look at Henry's story, the more something feels off. I'm still convinced Henry Creel isn't Vecna at all. He's in the role of Kaz the Bloody-Handed.
They are gods of our world. They immobilize and feed on the weak, bringing balance and order to an unstable ecosystem. But the human world was disrupting this harmony. Humans are a unique type of pest, multiplying, poisoning our world, all while enforcing a structure of their own.
If you know your D&D lore, Vecna isn't just another big bad. He's the level 20 problem, the kind of lich that no normal party can beat straight up. Even the gods are scared of him, and the only reason Vecna ever falls is because of Kas. Kas starts out as a good man, a loyal lieutenant, a hero type who gets twisted, corrupted, and turned into a monster by Vecna himself. Vecna literally gives Kas his power. He forges the one weapon that can kill him, puts it in Kas's hand, and thinks he's still in control. Kas becomes a brutal, vampiric enforcer. But in a single moment of clarity, Kas turns, swings that sword, and deals the killing blow that destroys Vecna, and destroys himself. That is not the story of a pure villain. That is the story of Henry Creel. Look at Henry before the Creel House massacre. Strip away the horror framing for a second. You've got a quiet, sensitive boy in a broken family, stuck in a world he doesn't understand, terrified by the cruelty he sees around him. He feels the world is a cruel, hateful place, and instead of anyone helping him, he's shipped off to Brenner and turned into a lab rat. That's not a mustache-twirling villain origin. That's a Kas setup. Kas was a good person who got rewritten by Vecna's magic. Henry is a good person who got rewritten by the Mind Flayer and Brenner's experiments. We watch him get pushed, carved up, literally numbered. 001 isn't a name, it's a brand, it's ownership. And here's the key detail. Henry never calls himself Vecna. The name Vecna comes from the kids at the table. Just like the Demogorgon, just like the Mind Flayer, they're using D&D language to describe something they don't fully understand. The show has always separated the naming the party uses from the true nature of what's going on in the Upside Down. So what if Henry isn't Vecna in the D&D sense at all? What if Henry is Kas, and the real Vecna is the entity behind the Mind Flayer? Think about how the Mind Flayer is framed. It's not just a monster, it's a shape, a concept, a storm made of particles. Will describes it like a presence in his mind, watching, feeling, waiting. This thing has been around long before Henry. He doesn't create it, he connects to it. He becomes its favorite piece on the board. Kas serves Vecna. Henry serves the Mind Flayer. Kas is given monstrous power. Henry is given monstrous power. Kas is twisted into something almost undead. Henry is literally shredded apart and rebuilt into the vine-covered creature we call Vecna, hanging there like a puppet on dark nerves. Even visually, he looks less like a self-contained villain and more like a conduit, a channel, a body wired into something much worse. And just like Kas, Henry seems to have these flashes of humanity under all the horror. Listen to the way he talks to Eleven in the lab. He isn't wrong about Brenner. He isn't wrong about the abuse. He isn't wrong that they are both prisoners. You can feel that human boy still in there, even as his worldview is being warped into something lethal. It's the same tragic energy as Kas, a once good man who's been bent so far he can't see the light anymore. So here's the first theory. Henry Creel is Kas the Bloody-Handed, not Vecna. He's the corrupted lieutenant, the weapon, the puppet wrapped in vines. And in Stranger Things 5, we're going to find out that the real Vecna is the mind behind the Mind Flayer, the true Lich, the thing that turned Henry into this undead-like horror in the first place. That solves the level 20 Vecna problem perfectly. You don't beat a god-tier villain by having 11 just push harder. You beat him the way D&D beats him. You make his own champion turn on him. You make Kays remember who he was. Now here's the second theory. What if Kas isn't Henry at all? What if Kas is Will Byers? Will is the first kid the Upside Down really chooses. He's the one who survives a full week in that nightmare when he should have died. He's the one who sings, who hides, who fights, and lives. When everyone else comes back, traumatized, but clean, Will comes back with something still inside him. He's cold all the time. He feels the Mind Flayer. His neck tingles. He knows when the shadow is near. That connection never fully goes away. That's exactly what you'd expect if he's being set up as Kas. Kas is Vecna's right hand, but he's also his greatest mistake. Will is perfectly positioned to become that. He's quiet, sensitive, and has already been used as a spy, a puppet, a vessel. And for 4 seasons, the show has made it clear. Will still feels like the outsider in his own party. He's the kid who got left behind socially, emotionally, romantically. That's a lot of pain sitting right next to the thing in his head that feeds on pain. Imagine Stranger Things. 5 leans into that. The party is focused on 11 versus Vecna, on closing gates, on leveling up, and meanwhile, Will is slowly changing. The connection in his neck stops being just a warning and starts becoming a temptation. He hears the Mind Flayer. It offers him power, a chance not to be the victim, not to be the kid in the back of the frame. For once, Will gets to be the one who decides what happens next. That's the beginning of a Kas arc, so Will clouds over, maybe lashes out. Maybe, for a stretch of episodes, he becomes the enemy. The party has to fight one of their own. Henry, the Vecna we've known, doubles down as the visible threat. But the real story is inside Will's mind, where this war between the human boy and the thing that owns him is reaching a breaking point. And then we reach the classic Kas moment. In D&D, Vecna gives Kas the only weapon that can kill him. In Stranger Things, that weapon might not be a literal sword. It might be Will's psychic bond to the Mind Flayer. It might be a shared memory that can reach the core of the monster. It might be his love for his friends, focused through the very connection Vecna thinks he controls. In the final fight, Vecna uses Will as the perfect puppet, pouring his power through him, absolutely sure he cannot lose. And that's when Will turns. In a single burst of clarity, Will uses that power against the source. He channels everything the Mind Flayer gave him and detonates it back into Vecna. Maybe Henry/Kas is involved. Maybe both of them, the two most broken boys in this story, team up in one last act of rebellion. Either way, Kas does what Kas always does. He kills Vecna, and he dies with him. Will sacrifices himself to save the party. Henry finally breaks free of the thing that's been wearing his face. The level 20 problem gets solved not by brute force, but by tragic, heroic betrayal. Just like the D&D story has always promised. So I don't think Stranger Things ends with Henry was Vecna all along, the end. I think the real twist is that Henry Creel and Will Byers are both playing the Kas role in different ways, and the true Vecna, the real mind behind the Flayer, is still waiting for someone he trusts to stab him in the heart. Whether you think Kas is Henry, Will, or both, tell me in the comments who you want to see deal the killing blow. And if you're still watching, drop Kas down below so I know you're part of the party.
Vecna is out of his mind. He's opening other doorways, and we don't know where they lead.
We all are ready for one last war.
Stranger Things 5 wants you to believe one thing. Vecna is the big bad, the final villain, the monster at the end of everything. But if you look closely at the lore, the Dungeons & Dragons parallels, and the way Volume 1 treats Will Byers and Dimension X, that story does not add up. In this video, Vecna is not the final boss. In Stranger Things 5, we are going to talk about why Vecna is more like the mid-game boss. We will look at the Mind Flayer as the real hive mind, Will Byers as the possible endgame threat.
I know it's hard to talk about, but these visions, were they like before? Like when you had your now memories?
It's like I was there. I was right there. I was seeing what it was seeing and thinking what it was thinking. I must have somehow tapped back into the hive mind.
And how the show has been hinting at a bigger power behind Vecna since season 1. Let us start with what we know about Vecna. Henry Creel goes to Dimension X as a child. He is exposed to the particles that will later form the Mind Flayer. He survives, comes back different, and ends up in Hawkins' lab as Subject 1. When 11 blasts him through the wall, he falls into the hellscape, then is reshaped by the hive mind into the monster we call Vecna. That sounds impressive, but listen to the order. Dimension X and the particles come first. The hive mind comes first. Henry comes later. That alone tells us Vecna is not the origin of this evil. He is a vessel. In Dungeons & Dragons, Vecna is a powerful lich, even a god in some versions. But even he is not the only top-tier threat. There are elder evils, primordials, and cosmic entities above him. The Duffers know this. They named him Vecna on purpose. Now think about the Mind Flayer. In Season 3, the Mind Flayer builds a physical body out of people and animals. When 11 injures that body, the Mind Flayer does not die. It retreats. In Season 4, we see that the storm-like shape in the upside-down sky existed before Henry. He did not create it. He shaped it. That is a key line. Vecna shapes the Mind Flayer like a spider because that is the form he understands. But the intelligence itself is older, bigger, and not fully visible. So if Vecna is the general, who is the king? The simplest answer is that the Mind Flayer, or whatever lives inside Dimension X, is the true final boss. Vecna is its favorite champion, but not the source. Then there is Will Byers. From Season 1, Will has been marked in a way nobody else has. He spends days in the Upside Down. He breathes the particles. In Season 2, a vine wraps around his throat and pours the Mind Flayer into him. He becomes a human relay. He feels temperature changes when the Mind Flayer is near. He hears it. He knows where it is.
Only this time, I didn't run. This time, I stood my ground. Easy peasy, right?
Easy peasy.
Just like that.
By Season 5, the show is clear. Will is the beginning and the end. Not Vecna, Will. If you were running this as a D&D campaign, you would see the pattern. The first kid taken. The one who survived the longest exposure. The one still connected to the hive mind years later. That is not just a victim, that is an anchor. There is a strong chance the final conflict of Stranger Things 5 is not 11 versus Vecna. It is the party versus whatever the hive mind wants to do with Will. Now, let us zoom out to the structure. Season 1 introduces a small Demogorgon. Season 2 introduces the Mind Flayer in shadow form. Season 3 gives it a body. Season 4 gives us Vecna as the face and the backstory. Season 5 ties it all together. If Vecna was the final boss, Stranger Things 4 would have killed him. The fact that he survives means he still has a role to play, but probably not as the last enemy. Think about other big stories. In many fantasy series, the villain you meet in the middle is there to teach you the rules of the true evil. They show you what the big threat can do on a smaller scale. Once you understand that, the story can reveal the real thing. Vecna shows us. The hive mind can twist human trauma. It can build bodies. It can rearrange time inside a mind. It can infect and reshape a human into a monster. That is terrifying. But it might only be phase 1. The real nightmare is what happens if the Mind Flayer, or the Dimension X intelligence, moves past needing Vecna at all. Imagine it using Will, or the entire upside-down copy of Hawkins, as its new core. At that point, killing Vecna would be like breaking one finger on a giant hand. So what does a final boss look like in Stranger Things 5? It might be Will fully taken over, forcing his friends to choose between saving him and saving the world. The Mind Flayer manifesting in a new form that is not tied to one body. Time itself bending, with the upside down locked on November 6, 1983, for a reason that only makes sense at the end. In all of those versions, Vecna is still important. He is the doorway, the teacher, the first nightmare. But he is not the last one. Here is the simple way to think about it. Vecna is the face of the enemy we understand. The Mind Flayer, Dimension X, and Will Byers are the parts we do not fully understand yet. Final bosses in stories are almost always tied to the deepest mystery, not the loudest monster. So as you watch Stranger Things 5 Volume 2 and the finale, do not just ask, will they beat Vecna? Ask, who gave Vecna his power? What does that thing really want? And what happens to Will if they win? Because when the screen cuts to black for the last time, the real question will not be how Vecna fell. It will be what price Hawkins had to pay to stop the thing behind him.